Tlaib.
For the future of our children, Nancy Pelosi.
That was Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and her children dabbing Thursday, mostly her kids, it looks like, as she cast her vote for Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker. Tlaib is part of a record number of women lawmakers in the House, marking an important milestone for Congress. Natalie Brand has the story.
The 116th Congress is already setting records.
We all have the ability and the privilege to serve with over 100 women.
It's the most racially diverse and has the most women elected to the House in congressional history. That includes the first Native American Congresswomen, Sharice Davids of Kansas and Deb Haaland of New Mexico, and the first Muslim Congresswomen, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota.
In all, the House now has 102 Congresswomen, the biggest boost of women members since the 1990s.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution?
The Senate has 25, increasing the number of states represented solely by women senators. Arizona became the 6th after the appointment of Martha McSally. Her colleague Kirsten Sinema will become the first female to represent the Grand Canyon state.
If the gentlewoman from California would please raise her right hand, which you're doing.
More women on Capitol Hill also means more moms. More than 1/5 have young children, according to the Center for American Women in Politics. That includes incoming member Mikey Sherrill, a Navy veteran from New Jersey who even campaigned on it.
I'm Mikey Sherrill, and those lessons served me well as a federal prosecutor and as a mom.
She and all new members now bring their unique backgrounds and life experience to the nation's capital. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Let's bring back in Leslie Sanchez and Lynda Tran. All right, ladies, the first matter of business for this new Congress will be to tackle the funding fight. The president invited lawmakers to the White House for a meeting Friday. Leslie, what are you going to be watching for?
Well, certainly this new dynamic. You know, it's interesting. I spoke to some, staunch Trump supporters today, and they said getting along does not make headlines, and, which tells you kind of the position they're in. They want to see the president hold that hard line on building the wall. But we're going to be looking for more compromise. I think that's the most dynamic thing that these women are bringing to the table, to the legislature, is a need to push for different alternative ideas, different viewpoints, and different ways to work with the president. And so we're going to see how effective that can be.
So the president made an unexpected appearance at the White House press briefing Thursday, doubling down on his demand for border wall funding. Speaker Pelosi has said Democrats will provide, quote, nothing for the wall. At this point, Lynda, is that a realistic stance?
A realistic stance not to provide funding for the wall? I mean, I think so. I think that the president himself set this up to be on his own shoulders. And we saw weeks ago when he said he would be proud to shut down the government over the wall. We heard that just yesterday, he said that it would be foolish for him to accept any sort of a deal that doesn't involve funding for this wall. And what we're going to have happen today is that now the Democrats are in control of the House. You should absolutely expect that they are going to pass legislation that would get the government back up and running again. And it ends up being back in Donald Trump's court, back in the Republican Party's court. And that's, a challenge for them.
Lynda, I want to ask you more about Democrats. They may be rallying around this issue of funding, but many campaigned against Nancy Pelosi's speakership. What internal problems are Democrats contending with as this new Congress gets underway?
I think that there certainly were some folks on the campaign trail that felt like they needed, in order to get elected, to walk a certain line when it came to whether they were going to support Nancy Pelosi. But, everybody expected that coming into today, there might be some sort of a floor fight, or at least that is probably what Republicans had hoped. In the end, you saw Nancy Pelosi extraordinarily triumphant, radiant in this incredible pink dress today on the floor, making history yet again. I mean, it's a testament to her ability to listen really well to the various concerns and priorities that people have, to bring together people in order to get things done. And that is the focus for Democrats moving forward, focusing on everything from infrastructure to reducing drug prices and things that are going to help ordinary American families all around the country. That's where the focus is going to be for Democrats.
And Leslie, go ahead.
Elena, I would say that that's where the focus is going to be for base Republicans, is looking at the optics of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer being a resistance effort an obstructionist, to use the president's term, against the Republican agenda, which they are going to argue, has performed well, and the president's living up to his promises. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of thorns on that rose, but that's basically what Republicans are looking for. They like this contrast of those two, and they're going to continue to support the president as long as he holds that line. That the unfortunate part is the president seems to be weak in a lot of areas, but in the area of understanding how much, out of disclosure, understanding how difficult this is for public servants who could choose any opportunity to work in other sectors and choose to work for the federal government. It's hurting their morale, it's hurting their pocketbooks, and it's going to have a dramatic long-term impact.
Yeah, I mean, because Leslie, just to follow up with you for a moment here, can you just talk a little bit about the kind of pressure the president is feeling from the far right on this issue? Because I think lost in all of this is, for some people, the idea that the president himself is not just, when you see him there and he's calling out Democrats, he's clearly targeting Democrats in his remarks, but the president himself has been targeted by many on the far right who have argued the president has not done enough on this issue, and this is why the president is making it a point to dig in on this issue.
That's exactly right, Elaine. He is speaking to of one frequency to one particular part of the Republican constituency, which is a base right populist effort in many cases. He's lost a lot of economic conservatives with his trade and tariff policies, and he's really sticking, his heels in on the border wall. The sad part is when you talk to individuals at Department of Homeland Security or people who've lived along the U.S.-Mexico border, areas like Laredo, which is the largest inland trade port in the United States, in Texas, they will tell you that a wall is not effective. There are many other alternatives to really look from a national security perspective. It's not a magical elixir, to use their term. And the president's tone deaf to that. He really is thinking this magical, beautiful wall is the solution. And that's what the conservatives that are really bought into this argument, that's what they're listening for. So it's an unfortunate disconnect. It's a false argument. And in many cases, it's a false hope.
Lynda, let me ask you about Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He is going to be having to contend with Democrats, some of them positioning themselves for 2020. How will Senator Schumer deal with keeping those Democrats focused on Congress and sort of the business in front of them rather than presidential ambitions?
Well, I think that the biggest shift that you're going to see on the Senate side, as you see more and more sitting senators announce their exploratory committees or their official campaigns, is that they're going to be making big speeches and they're going to be pushing and promoting pieces of legislation that I think they feel like will serve the purposes of their campaign platforms and what they think their vision for the country is. That said, I think that the big thing for Democrats is going to be trying to figure out how to shore up healthcare in this country, figuring out how to create jobs and address climate change. And there isn't actually going to be a lot of daylight between the various sitting electeds and others who may be announcing that they're stepping into the fray for 2020. I think that generally there's going to be some consensus across those issues.
All right, finally, in the couple minutes that we have left, Leslie, let me start with you. What are you most excited to see get underway with this new Congress?
I'm excited to see the committee assignments because a lot of individuals campaigned on those. And I'm excited to see the president's dynamic and the transitions even internally within the White House in terms of top leadership positions and how they are going to build that relationship, that bridge to Congress, because that's going to be pivotal. Many lessons learned historically is the president's going into the second 2 years. It's really about executive management of the White House with Congress. It's the president's time.
Lynda, your thoughts quickly?
I am so excited about the new faces that we're seeing, the women that we talked about at the start of the segment. The fact that the average age is going to be 10 years younger than it has been in previous Congresses. I just think that it's a magical thing to see representatives of the people who look more like the people all around this country. I'm just looking forward to seeing all of those elements really shift the dynamics on the Hill.
Fascinating time in our nation's history. Lynda Tran and Leslie Sanchez, thanks to you both. Happy New Year, ladies.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.